The morning fog rolled across Naval Amphibious Base Coronado like a living thing, swallowing the parade grounds where 200 families had gathered to watch their sons become Navy SEALs. Among them sat a woman in her 50s, unremarkable in jeans and a weathered leather jacket, her graying hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She kept to the back row, away from the other parents comparing hotel recommendations and sharing proud stories about their boys. Her eyes tracked one graduate in particular, third-class Petty Officer Marcus Rivera, standing at attention in the second row, his trident pin catching the filtered sunlight. Nobody noticed her at first. Nobody saw the way her fingers unconsciously traced patterns on her knee, the same patterns pilots use to remember emergency procedures. Nobody caught how her breathing shifted when the helicopters passed overhead, not with fear but with something else entirely. Recognition, longing, the kind of muscle memory that decades cannot erase. Commander James "Hammer" Harrison was making his rounds, greeting families when he spotted her. Something in her posture made him pause, the way she held herself despite trying to blend in, spine straight even while seated, shoulders squared against an invisible headwind. He'd seen that bearing before, in people who'd spent their lives strapped into ejection seats, pulling 9GS like it was nothing. As he approached, the wind caught her jacket, revealing her forearm for just a moment. The tattoo was faded but unmistakable, a diving, eagle-clutching lightning bolts, surrounded by 5 stars. Harrison's blood turned to ice water. He knew that insignia. Everyone who'd studied modern aerial warfare knew it. But it couldn't be. She was supposed to be dead. "Ma'am," he said, his voice barely steady. The woman looked up, and in her eyes he saw it all, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen too much sky turn into fire. That tattoo. She pulled her jacket down, covering it. "You're mistaken, Commander. I'm just here for my son." But Harrison wasn't mistaken. He'd studied every declassified report, every grainy photograph from Operation Storm Crown. The tattoo belonged to only one unit, the Ghost Riders, an experimental squadron that officially never existed. And the 5 stars, those were kills, not ordinary kills. 5 stars meant something that had been buried in classified files for 23 years. 5 stars meant she was Spectre 7. The graduation ceremony continued around them, but Harrison couldn't move. Because if she was Spectre 7, if she was really standing here alive, then everything they thought they knew about the worst day in modern naval aviation was wrong. And somewhere in the Pentagon, phones were about to start ringing. She stood to leave, but Harrison caught her arm gently. "Joanna Reeves," he whispered. "Lieutenant Colonel Joanna Valkyrie Reeves." The woman froze. Nobody had called her that name in over 2 decades. Behind them, the graduation ceremony reached its crescendo, young SEALs throwing their caps into the air, families cheering, the Navy band playing Anchors Away. But between Harrison and the woman who might be a ghost, the silence stretched like a held breath. She turned slowly, and when she met his eyes again, Harrison saw something shift, a wall coming down, or perhaps going up. "Commander," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken history, "some stories are better left buried with the dead." "But you're not dead," Harrison pressed, his mind racing through the implications. "The official report said your Hornet went down over the Zagros Mountains. No ejection, no beacon, no recovery possible." A bitter smile touched her lips. The official report said a lot of things. She glanced toward the graduates, finding Marcus again. He was laughing with his teammates, young and invincible, unaware his mother carried secrets that could rewrite military history. "My son thinks his father died in a training accident when he was 2. He thinks I was a commercial pilot who retired early. It's a good story, simple, clean." 13 aircraft, Harrison said, unable to stop himself. 13 aircraft lost in one day. The worst loss of naval aviation assets since Vietnam, and you were the only survivor. "I wasn't supposed to survive." The words came out flat, emotionless, but her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her jacket. "Have you ever made a choice, Commander, that saved your life but destroyed everything else? Have you ever had to choose between your duty and your humanity? Harrison's tablet buzzed. He glanced down to see a priority message from NAVAIR headquarters. Someone had run her face through the recognition protocols. After 23 years of being dead, Joanna Reeves had just appeared on the grid. He turned the tablet off. "They'll come for you now," he said. "They always knew where I was." Her revelation hit him like a physical blow. "You think I could disappear without their permission? You think the widow's pension, the new identity, the sealed records, you think that all just happened? I made a deal, Commander. My silence for my son's future. And I've kept that deal for 23 years. Then why show yourself now?" She looked at Marcus again, now receiving his sealed trident, the gold pin pressed into his chest until it drew blood, tradition, honor, sacrifice. Because yesterday he got orders. Classified deployment. Aviation support specialist. They're sending him to the same mountains where his father actually died, where 13 good men and women died because someone at the top decided acceptable losses were acceptable. The fog was lifting now, sun breaking through in golden shafts that painted the ceremony in almost heavenly light. But Harrison felt cold. Operation Storm Crown wasn't what they told us, was it? "No," she stood, preparing to leave. "And the operation they're planning now, it's the same playbook, same mountains, same lies. Only this time it's my son who will pay the price for someone's ambition." What really happened that day? Valkyrie, because Harrison couldn't think of her as anyone else now, turned back one last time. "We weren't sent to provide air support for a rescue mission. We were sent to ensure there would be no one left to rescue, and when I refused the order..." She touched her jacket where the tattoo lay hidden. "5 stars, Commander. 5 American aircraft I had to shoot down to prevent a war crime. My own squadron, my own family." The band had stopped playing. The ceremony was ending, families rushing forward to embrace their new SEALs. Marcus was scanning the crowd, looking for his mother, his face bright with pride and accomplishment. He had no idea he was about to become a pawn in a game that had started before he was born. "Help me," Valkyrie said suddenly, the words seeming to surprise her as much as Harrison. "Help me stop them from doing it again." Harrison thought about his career, his pension, his reputation. He thought about the 13 names on the memorial wall at Pensacola, listed as heroes who died serving their country. He thought about the truth, buried under 2 decades of classification stamps and redacted reports. Then he looked at Marcus Rivera, young and eager, about to follow in footsteps he didn't know existed. "There's a coffee shop 3 blocks north," Harrison said quietly. "Back entrance leads to a private room. 1 hour," he paused, "and Colonel Reeves bring proof." She nodded and melted back into the crowd, just another proud parent leaving another military ceremony. But Harrison noticed something different now. The other parents unconsciously parted for her, some instinct recognizing a predator among them even if their conscious minds didn't. You could take the pilot out of the cockpit, but you couldn't take the warrior out of the pilot. As Harrison watched her disappear into the thinning fog, his secure phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he hadn't seen in 15 years, Admiral Patricia Chen, Director of Naval Intelligence. "Commander Harrison," the voice was sharp, authoritative. "We understand you've had an interesting conversation." "Admiral, 1 hour, Commander, the coffee shop will be listening." The line went dead. Harrison stood there, ceremony ending around him, watching Marcus Rivera embrace his fellow SEALs, and realized he just stepped into something that had been waiting 23 years to explode. The truth about Operation Storm Crown, the ghost of Valkyrie, and somewhere in those classified files, a secret worth killing 13 Americans to protect. The fog had completely lifted now, revealing a perfect California morning, but Harrison had never felt less clear about anything in his life. He had 1 hour to decide whether to be part of the cover-up or part of the revelation. 1 hour to choose between his career and the truth. He looked at the young SEALs one more time, their faces full of certainty about their mission, their purpose, their country. They deserved better than the lies. They deserved the truth, even if it destroyed everything they believed in. Harrison made his decision. He pulled out his personal phone, the one not monitored by naval intelligence, and typed a single message to an encrypted address. Valkyrie lives. Storm Crown resurfaces. Need everything you have. The reply came within seconds. Finally, we've been waiting. 1 hour. The clock was ticking, and 23 years of lies were about to come crashing down. The coffee shop smelled of burnt Arabica and old wood, a family-owned place that had somehow survived the corporate invasion of downtown Coronado. Harrison arrived first, or so he thought, until he noticed the subtle signs, the barista who held his gaze a moment too long, the couple in the corner whose conversation never quite synced with their lip movements, the delivery truck that had been idling outside for 12 minutes without anyone getting out. They were all being watched. Valkyrie entered through the back exactly 60 minutes after their conversation, and Harrison understood immediately why she'd survived when 13 others hadn't. She moved differently now than she had at the ceremony, the grieving mother persona shed like an unnecessary flight suit. This was the real Joanna Reeves, the pilot who'd earned her call sign by choosing who lived and who died in the skis over Afghanistan, Iraq, and a dozen classified locations. She placed a sealed envelope on the table between them. "Before we begin, Commander, you need to understand something. Opening this envelope will end your career. Best case scenario, you're forcibly retired with a gag order. Worst case." She didn't need to finish. "Admiral Chen already knows I'm here." Patricia Chen knows exactly what's in this envelope. She was the intelligence officer who planned Storm Crown. Valkyrie's eyes hardened. She was also the one who ordered the liquidation of anyone who asked questions afterward. Harrison's hand hesitated over the envelope. Then, why is she letting this happen? Because the game has changed. 23 years ago, she could bury 13 bodies and call it heroism. Now, with satellites, social media, and 1,000 ways for the truth to leak, she needs a different solution. She needs someone to blame for Storm Crown, someone to take the fall for what's about to happen in those mountains. "You." "Me?" Valkyrie leaned back. "The rogue pilot who went crazy and shot down her own squadron. They've probably already prepared the press release. Posthumous court-martial, mental health issues, combat stress. They'll paint me as a tragedy, not a traitor, because that's easier to sell." "But you have proof." "I have recordings, cockpit audio from that day. Every order, every refusal, every plea for clarification before I had to make the choice." She tapped the envelope. "It's all here. But Commander, once you hear it, you'll understand why they've kept me hidden instead of eliminated. Why they're willing to let my son walk into the same trap." Harrison opened the envelope. Inside was a thumb drive and a single photograph. 13 pilots standing in front of their aircraft, all smiling, all young, all dead within 6 hours of the photo being taken. Valkyrie stood in the center, her helmet under her arm, looking directly at the camera with eyes that seemed to see through time itself. "Beautiful day for flying," Harrison read the handwritten caption on the back. "Storm Crown, Day 0, God forgive us all." He inserted the thumb drive into his tablet, bypassing the military network, using his personal hotspot. The first file was audio, dated 23 years ago, timestamp 6:23 hours local time. The voices that emerged were crystal clear despite the age of the recording. Harrison recognized the radio protocol immediately, tactical frequency, encrypted, meant only for the pilots involved. "Ghost Rider flight, this is Storm Crown actual. Mission parameters have changed. You are now weapons-free. Target designation Hotel 7 through Hotel 19. Storm Crown actual Valkyrie, request confirmation. Hotel 7 through 19 are marked as friendly positions, refugee camps. Negative Valkyrie, intel confirms hostile presence, weapons free. Storm Crown Actual Ghost 2. I'm showing women and children on thermal, hundreds of non-combatants. Ghost Flight Storm Crown Actual. You have your orders. Any pilot who refuses will be marked as compromised. Sidewinder protocol is now active. Harrison paused the recording. Sidewinder protocol. License to engage any aircraft not complying with mission parameters, Valkyrie said quietly, including friendlies. He continued the playback. The next voice was younger, uncertain. Valkyrie Ghost 5, what do we do? Ghost Flight Valkyrie, hold position. Storm Crown Actual, I need authentication code Zulu Zulu 7. Authentication provided Valkyrie, execute order. There was a long pause in the recording. Harrison could hear breathing, the hum of aircraft engines, the subtle tone changes that meant pilots were switching to private channels, trying to figure out what to do. Then Valkyrie's voice, different now, decisive. Ghost Flight Valkyrie, banking left heading 270, follow my lead, we're aborting. Negative Ghost Flight, Storm Crown Actual, continue mission or be designated hostile. Storm Crown Actual Valkyrie, I'll take that designation. Ghost Flight is returning to base. What happened next made Harrison's blood run cold. New voices, call signs he didn't recognize. Viper Flight Storm Crown Actual, Ghost Squadron has gone rogue. You are cleared hot. Repeat, cleared hot on Ghost Squadron. Storm Crown Actual, Viper 1, confirm you want us to engage friendlies. Confirmed, Sidewinder protocol active, leave no witnesses. The next 17 minutes of audio were a masterclass in aerial combat and a testament to human tragedy. Harrison heard Valkyrie trying to protect her squadron while they were hunted by their own forces. He heard pilots pleading for clarification, for help, for someone to make sense of what was happening. He heard them die, one by one. Ghost 3 is hit, ejecting. Negative on shoot, Ghost 3 is gone. Valkyrie Ghost 7, why are they doing this? Stay with me 7, heading for the canyon we can. Fox 2, Vipers got lock. 7 respond. By the end, only Valkyrie's voice remained, calm despite everything, still trying to save anyone she could. Storm Crown Actual Valkyrie, 5 aircraft down, I'm defending myself. Please abort Viper Flight, please. Viper Flight Storm Crown Actual, complete your mission. The last minutes were different. Valkyrie had stopped pleading. Her voice became something else, mechanical, precise, deadly. Viper 1 spiked, defending, a pause, splash 1. Viper 2 Fox 3, another pause, splash 2. Harrison realized what he was hearing. The 5 stars on her tattoo. She'd shot down 5 American aircraft to survive, to carry the truth of what happened. 5 pilots who were following orders to kill their own. The recording ended with coordinates, Valkyrie reading them clearly. Her position, her heading, her intention to reach Iranian airspace where the rules of engagement would force a stand-down. Then static. Harrison removed the thumb drive, his hands shaking slightly. The couple in the corner had stopped pretending to talk. The barista was no longer even trying to look busy. Everyone was waiting. The refugee camps, he said finally. What was really there? Nothing, Valkyrie replied. Empty desert. The refugees had been evacuated 3 days earlier by UN forces. Chen knew that. The Pentagon knew that. But someone needed a reason to escalate, to justify a larger operation. Dead American pilots killed by Iranians after attacking what everyone thought were refugee camps. It would have given them their war. But you survived. I reached Iranian airspace. They forced me down, but they didn't kill me. They knew exactly what had happened. They'd been monitoring our communications. That's when I learned the truth. The Iranians had recordings too. They offered me a choice. Stay and become propaganda or disappear and let them use the information differently. You came home. 3 months later. New identity, new life. The Iranians fed false intel that I died in custody. Chen and her people were happy to confirm it. Easier than explaining how their designated villain had proof of their war crime. The Iranians got what they wanted, leverage over certain American officials, and I got to disappear. Harrison felt sick, and now they're doing it again. Different mountains, same plan. Create an incident, blame the enemy, justify intervention. Except this time, it's my son who will be in those helicopters when things go wrong. She pulled out another photograph, Marcus in his SEAL gear, young and proud. He has no idea his mother is the ghost they use to scare pilots in classified briefings. The cautionary tale of what happens when you refuse orders. What do you want me to do? You're going to be the investigating officer when things go wrong. Chen chose you specifically, your reputation for thoroughness, your unimpeachable record. When my son and his unit disappear in those mountains, you'll investigate and conclude it was enemy action. Clean, simple, believable. And if I refuse? Then Admiral Chen activates her backup plan and we both disappear. But Commander, there's a third option. Before Harrison could respond, the front door opened. Admiral Patricia Chen walked in, 23 years older but still carrying herself with the same cold efficiency that had made her the youngest flag officer in naval intelligence history. "Hello, Joanna," Chen said, sitting down at their table as if they were old friends meeting for coffee. "Commander Harrison, I see we're having our reunion ahead of schedule." "Patricia," Valkyrie's voice could have frozen helium. "You look well for a dead woman. I particularly like the touch of going gray. Very authentic." Chen signaled the barista, her asset, who brought over 3 cups of coffee without being asked. "I assume you've shared our little historical document with the commander." "He knows enough." "Does he know about your husband, the real story?" Chen's smile was sharp. "Does your son know his father wasn't the hero you've told him about?" Valkyrie's hand tightened on her coffee cup. "Don't." Captain Michael Rivera was going to expose Storm Crown. He'd gathered evidence, testimonies, recordings. One might say he was a whistleblower if one were being charitable. Others might say he was a traitor. Harrison looked between them. "You killed him." "I didn't have to," Chen replied. "Joanna did that for us. Didn't you, dear? Shot him down yourself when he tried to flee with the evidence. The 6th star you never added to your tattoo." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Valkyrie stood slowly, and Harrison saw her hand move to her hip where a pilot would keep their sidearm. There was nothing there, hadn't been for 23 years, but muscle memory persisted. "He was heading for Iranian airspace with classified materials," Valkyrie said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You gave me the order, him or the entire squadron. And you chose. You always choose correctly, Joanna. That's why you're still alive." Chen sipped her coffee calmly. "That's why I'm here with an offer instead of a cleanup team." "I'm listening." "Your son's deployment is real. The mission is real, but it doesn't have to go the way you think. Help us complete Storm Crown properly this time. No witnesses, no survivors, no loose ends, and Marcus comes home a hero. Refuse, and he becomes part of the necessary casualties." "You're asking me to help you kill Americans." "I'm asking you to help me prevent a larger war by sacrificing a few for the many. The Iranians have nuclear capabilities now. The calculus has changed. We need an incident they can't deny, something so clear that the international community will support our response." Chen pulled out a tablet showing satellite imagery. "Your son's unit will insert here. When they discover the terrorist camp, there will be an ambush. Tragic but effective." "And if I expose this now, if I go public?" Chen laughed, actually laughed. "With what? Decades-old recordings that we'll claim are fabricated. You're a ghost, Joanna, you don't exist. And even if someone believed you, your son would be the first casualty. Training accident, equipment failure. These things happen in dangerous professions." Harrison found his voice. "You can't threaten." I don't make threats, Commander, I state facts. Chen's demeanor never changed. Here's another fact. In 72 hours this operation proceeds, with or without Joanna's cooperation. The only variable is who survives. Valkyrie sat back down, and Harrison saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected: calculation, not defeat. She was thinking, planning, the same way she must have planned her survival 23 years ago. I want to see the full operational plan, she said finally. Of course. Chen slid a secured tablet across the table. Everything's here: routes, personnel, contingencies. You'll particularly appreciate the extraction protocols or lack thereof. Valkyrie studied the screen, her face revealing nothing. Harrison watched her eyes track across the data, absorbing information at a speed that suggested she'd never really stopped being a tactical officer. There's a problem with your plan, she said finally. Oh. The weather window. You're planning for clear skies, but this time of year, that valley gets thermal inversions. Helicopter operations become impossible for hours at a time. Any pilot who's actually flown those mountains would know that. Chen frowned, pulling the tablet back. Our meteorologists are looking at satellite data, not local knowledge. Valkyrie leaned forward. I've flown those valleys, Patricia. So did my husband. The inversions aren't in any database because officially we were never there. But they're real, and they'll trap your helicopters at the worst possible moment. You're lying. Check the mission recordings from Storm Crown. Hour 14, minute 37. You'll hear Ghost 8 reporting unexpected thermal layers. We lost 2 aircraft learning about those conditions. Chen was already typing, pulling up archived files. Her frown deepened. This changes the timeline. It changes everything. You need someone who knows those mountains, who can guide your pilots through the inversions. Valkyrie's voice was steady. You need me. Harrison realized what she was doing, making herself indispensable, buying time, getting inside the operation. It was brilliant and terrifying. Chen studied her for a long moment. You're proposing to help us. I'm proposing to keep my son alive. If this operation is happening regardless, then I want to be in a position to affect the outcome. And Commander Harrison stays quiet and does his job when the time comes. Investigates, concludes enemy action, everyone goes home. Valkyrie looked at Harrison. Except the ones who don't. Chen stood. I'll need an answer in 6 hours. If you agree, you'll be reinstated under a black contract. Temporary commission, full operational authority. If you refuse or attempt to interfere, well. She looked at Marcus's photo still on the table. SEALs die in training all the time. Dangerous job. She walked to the door, then paused. Oh, Joanna, your husband's last transmission before you shot him down. He said he forgave you. I thought you should know. The door closed behind her, leaving Harrison and Valkyrie in a silence that felt like a scream. You're not really going to help them, Harrison said. It wasn't a question. My husband died trying to stop them. 13 pilots died because I couldn't stop them. I've lived with that for 23 years. She stood, pocketing the thumb drive. But I'll be damned if I let them take my son too. What's your plan? You're going to investigate when this goes wrong, just like Chen wants. But you're going to find something she doesn't expect, evidence that Storm Crown was an inside job, that American forces killed Americans to justify a war. And this time, the evidence will be impossible to bury. How? Valkyrie smiled, and Harrison understood why they'd called her Valkyrie, the chooser of the slain. Because this time I'm going to be wearing a wire. Every order, every communication, every criminal decision, all recorded, all transmitted to servers Chen doesn't control. She'll kill you the moment she realizes. Probably, but by then it'll be too late. The truth will be out and my son will be safe. She headed for the back door. 6 hours, Commander. Decide whether you're part of the solution or part of the cover-up. Harrison sat alone in the coffee shop. the weight of truth crushing. Outside, the world continued normally, tourists taking photos, military families enjoying their day, nobody knowing that in 72 hours, a lie 23 years in the making would either die or metastasize. He thought about his career, his family, his belief in the system he'd served for 2 decades. Then he thought about 13 pilots who died for refusing an illegal order, about a woman who'd lived as a ghost to protect her son, about a truth so terrible it had been worth all those lives to hide. Harrison made his decision. He pulled out his personal phone and typed a message to the encrypted address. Need everything on Operation Storm Crown, everything on Admiral Patricia Chen, and I need a way to record and transmit that can't be detected or jammed. The reply was immediate. Finally, we've been waiting 23 years for someone to ask. Harrison looked at the photo Valkyrie had left behind Marcus Rivera in his SEAL uniform, young and proud, and unaware he was about to become either a casualty or a catalyst for the biggest military scandal since Iran-Contra. "Not on my watch, kid," Harrison muttered. "Not on my watch." The Coronado Naval Base looked different to Valkyrie as she drove through the checkpoint 6 hours later. 23 years ago, she'd left through these same gates in an ambulance, officially dying en route to the hospital from injuries sustained in a classified operation. Now she was returning, temporarily resurrected, to prevent history from repeating. The guard barely glanced at the credentials Chen had provided: black contractor badge, no name, just a number. Ghost made flesh, but still a ghost in the system. Chen was waiting in a conference room deep in the Special Operations compound, surrounded by maps, tablets, and 3 other officers Valkyrie didn't recognize. Young faces, eager, unaware they were planning a war crime. "Gentlemen, this is our aviation consultant," Chen announced. "She has unique experience with the operational environment. You'll give her full access to all planning materials." One of the officers, a lieutenant commander with intelligence insignia, frowned. "Ma'am, with respect, this operation is compartmentalized." "Lieutenant Commander Walsh," Chen's voice could have cut steel, "this consultant has forgotten more about those mountains than you'll ever know. Questions?" Walsh shut up, but Valkyrie caught his look, suspicious, calculating. He'd be a problem. "The weather window," Valkyrie said, moving to the topographical display. "Show me your primary and alternate routes." For the next 2 hours, she dissected their plan with surgical precision, pointing out flaws that would have gotten pilots killed even if the operation had been legitimate. The thermal inversions were real, but she'd exaggerated their unpredictability. In truth, she knew exactly when they'd form and exactly how to use them. "Your insertion point is here," she said, marking a valley junction. "But if you hit an inversion layer, your pilots will need to drop below radar coverage. This corridor," she traced a narrow passage between 2 peaks, "is your only option." "That's a kill box," Walsh protested. "If anyone's waiting." "No one will be waiting because officially you're not there." Chen's tone brooked no argument. "Continue." Valkyrie continued mapping routes, all the while memorizing every detail, every contingency, every weakness in their plan. The wire Harrison's contacts had provided was woven into her bra underwire, undetectable, transmitting everything to a satellite uplink they'd hidden in her car. "The extraction is the critical point," she said finally. "Once the incident occurs, you'll have maybe 15 minutes before Iranian response forces arrive. Your helicopters will be heavy with casualties." "There won't be any casualties to extract," Chen said quietly. The room went silent. Even the eager young officers looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am," Walsh ventured, "the terrorist camp will be destroyed completely. No survivors. Chemical accident, chlorine gas from their own weapon manufacturing. Tragic, but conclusive." Chen pulled up a new screen showing chemical weapons specifications. The gas will dissipate within hours, leaving only bodies and evidence of their weapon production. Valkyrie kept her expression neutral while her hidden wire recorded every word. And our forces will observe from safe distance, document everything, then suffer a mechanical failure requiring immediate withdrawal. By the time anyone can investigate, there will be nothing but dead terrorists and proof of their chemical weapons program. You're going to gas civilians and blame it on the Iranians. Valkyrie said it flatly, not a question. I'm going to prevent a nuclear war by giving us cause to act preemptively, Chen corrected. The Iranians are 6 months from a deployable weapon. We need justification to stop them now. And my son will be part of the observation team. Safe distance, full hazmat gear. He comes home a hero who discovered and documented a terrorist chemical weapon facility. It was a lie, of course. Valkyrie could see it in Chen's eyes. Marcus and his team were meant to be the casualties that sold the story American Special Forces killed by terrorist chemical weapons. The perfect casus belli. I need to see the chemical deployment system, Valkyrie said. That's need to know. I need to know wind patterns for those chemicals, unless you want your observation team caught in their own gas cloud. She stared Chen down. You brought me in for my expertise. Let me use it. Chen nodded to Walsh, who reluctantly pulled up another classified file. The deployment system was elegant in its simplicity. Aerosol canisters that would be dropped by drone, disguised to look like Iranian military ordnance. The prevailing winds at that altitude, Valkyrie began. We'll carry the gas away from our forces, Walsh interrupted. At ground level, yes, but the thermal inversions I warned you about, they'll create a downdraft effect. Your gas will blow back on your own people. She pulled up the meteorological data. Here, see. The same thermal layers that affect helicopter operations will trap and redirect your chemical agent. Walsh paled as he ran the calculations. She's right, Christ, we would have killed our own forces with their own chemical weapons, Valkyrie finished, just like Storm Crown. The room went absolutely still. Chen's hand moved to her sidearm. I'm sorry, Valkyrie said quickly. I misspoke. I meant it would be an operational failure like other classified missions I'm aware of. Chen's hand relaxed slightly. Yes, we must avoid any operational failures. The next 3 hours were spent redesigning the operation around the weather conditions Valkyrie had identified. She guided them carefully, appearing to help while actually building in failure points only she would recognize. When the time came, she could trigger a cascade of events that would expose everything while keeping Marcus safe. As the meeting concluded, Chen held her back. That was an interesting slip of the tongue earlier. I've been out of the game for 23 years. Operational security isn't what it used to be. No, I suppose not, Chen studied her. Your son doesn't know you're here. No. Good, keep it that way. He deploys tomorrow night. You'll be in the Tactical Operations Center with me, monitoring everything. Chen smiled coldly. Just like old times, except this time you'll be giving the orders that get people killed. This time, I'll be making sure the right people survive. We'll see. Chen headed for the door. Oh, and Joanna, that wire you're wearing, the one you think we don't know about, it's only transmitting what we want it to transmit. Harrison's friends are hearing exactly what we want them to hear. Valkyrie's blood turned to ice. Chen laughed. You didn't really think we'd let you walk in here without checking, did you? The moment you entered the base, we've been controlling your transmissions. Your insurance policy is our confession, edited and curated to tell the story we want told. Then why? Because when this is over, when the operation succeeds and the war begins, we'll release your recordings. The ravings of a disturbed woman who killed her own squadron, her own husband, trying to sabotage one more mission. You'll be the perfect scapegoat, Joanna. The traitor who tried to stop us from preventing nuclear war. Chen left, and Valkyrie stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by maps of mountains where she'd lost everything once before. But Chen had made a mistake. She'd confirmed the wire was transmitting, even if she was controlling it. And Valkyrie had learned long ago that every system,